Hello everyone, and welcome to your top 5 to stay alive for November 2017. I had an interesting experience this past month. I woke up in total pain, had to go to the ER. I thought I was having a kidney stone. Turns out $16,000 later, 2 CT scans, they couldn't find a thing, sent me home with some painkillers. $16,000. Went to my chiropractor. $40 later, a rib was rubbing on my kidney, one little treatment, and I was good to go. So that's allopathic medicine for you. $16,000, all you get is painkillers, can't find anything wrong. And then my chiropractic in one treatment, 5 seconds, boom, problem solved. So, you know, us quacky doctors somehow seem to know what's going on in the world. And speaking of which, let's begin with topic number 1. The FDA has just dropped an urgent health issue that it sounds like a concrete ball. I'm talking about the use of extremely toxic and commonly used dyes which are injected into the vein to enhance the image of an MRI scan. The problem is that many of these dyes contain a substance called gadolinium. These gadolinium-based contrast dyes have caused untold numbers of patients to struck down with horrific disabling condition. It's a disease that turns their skin thick and hard like wood, making it nearly impossible to even move. Plus, gadolinium has turned up in brain tumor biopsies, with some experts believing it can trigger cancer cells to grow faster. But after 2 years of hemming and hawing over the problem, the FDA has just declared that having residues of this toxic metal in your brain, bones, and skin is A-OK. This is why it's more urgent than ever that you know the whole story before you or a loved one, especially a child, is subjected to having this poison put inside your body. If there has ever was a situation where the FDA could have really done something to benefit patients, this was it. But true to form, it acted on the side of industry, in this case giving a wink and a nod to General Electric Healthcare, which owns OmniScan, the most commonly used gadolinium-based MRI dye. Last month, I told you about the very real risks involved in being injected with gadolinium contrasting agent before undergoing an MRI, and how European regulators are recommending that the ones most frequently used, such as OmniScan, be banned altogether. Of course, in the U.S., doctors and radiologists will tell you how harmless it is, how your kidneys will excrete the substance, and how it's really needed so they can accurately read the scan. But that's just not true. Gadolinium dyes are highly toxic and used for the convenience of radiologists. And the most incredible part of the FDA's review is the casual admission that gadolinium is indeed turning up in the brain and other body tissues. But here's the thing, the entire theory that this highly toxic substance is safe to inject into us was based on the concept that most, if not all of it, is simply eliminated in our urine. Now we're being told that gadolinium is known to be retained in the organs. Unbelievable. The only danger, the agency says, has to do with a rare condition called nephrogenic system fibrosis, that horrific skin disease I mentioned that can make your skin and joints feel and look like wood. But that just people involves a small subgroup of people with pre-existing kidney failure, so says the FDA. That, however, is certainly not something we should be gambling on. If your body's retaining this substance, which the FDA freely admits that can be the case, we don't know what the consequences can be. And anyone who tries to tell you otherwise is just grasping at straws. While it seems that the agency has pretty much washed its hands of the matter, saying it will hold a public meeting about it sometime in the future, that doesn't mean there aren't some things you can do. First of all and foremost, if you or a family member is scheduled to have an MRI, ask if it will be enhanced with a contrasting agent. I advise that all such dyes be adamantly refused. Number 2, And before you set foot in an imaging facility to have an MRI done, ask your doctor why he ordered it. In many cases, research has found that MRIs, as well as other diagnostic tests, are highly overused and unnecessary. I know it can be extremely difficult to question your doctor in a situation such as this, but I am absolutely positive that every single one of the patients who have suffered the terrible side effects of these gadolinium-based dyes wishes they could go back in time and not have allowed it to be injected into them. Whew! Topic number 2. The next topic involves a drug I see advertised almost every night on the telly, and that is the drug repatha. You see it too. At first, the FDA said that the shiny new cholesterol drug repatha would be reserved for people with an inherited disease that causes super high cholesterol numbers. Then we heard this risky med could also be prescribed for another limited group, folks who had tried everything but just couldn't get their LDL down. But it doesn't seem rather odd that those repatha commercials started running every day? Why would Amgen spend so much on advertising money to promote a drug that should be for a limited market? That's because once drug makers get their foot in the door, you can forget what they told the FDA. It's of the utmost importance that you know this, because the danger of lowering cholesterol to the kinds of numbers that these type of drugs can accomplish is a signed, sealed, and delivered invitation to disaster. You've probably heard a lot about repatha and Praluent, also known as PCSK9 inhibitors, because I've been warning you over the last 2 years about them, and there's a very good reason for that. These drugs are extremely dangerous even when they do exactly what they're intended to do, which is knock down LDL cholesterol, called the bad kind, to bargain basement numbers in the 20s and 30s and maybe even lower. But the potential risk of falling that low sound like a laundry list of the worst, ranging from depression and anxiety to cancer and stroke. And as we've been telling you from the very beginning, one of the biggest dangers in dropping cholesterol numbers to such a low number, uncharted territory, has to do with your brain. Even before these meds even hit the market, the FDA warned drug makers about the potential danger of causing neurocognitive adverse events, aka dementia. In fact, back when the first PCSK9 drug was approved, numerous experts spoke up about the need for ongoing long-term trials to try to find the answer to the question how they affect the brain. That, however, is something neither Big Pharma nor friends at the FDA seem all that concerned about. In fact, a new study paid for by repatha's maker Amgen is aimed at finding out just why more prescriptions for this pricey med aren't being okayed. In it, lead author Dr. Anne-Marie Navarre, a professor of cardiology at Duke Clinical Research Institute, moans and groans over the fact that so many patients are being kept from using repatha because they've been denied payment by their insurance. Well, it's no wonder. This drug runs around $14,000 a year. She was surprised at how little clinical factors, such as your actual cholesterol numbers, played into whether or not you were denied for coverage or not. Really, Dr. Navarre? That little factor was the very basis of approval for this drug. It matters a whole lot. It's bad enough that these PCSK9 inhibitors were approved for anyone. Now they want everyone taking them. If you've recently had the cholesterol talk with your doctor, you might have come away with the idea that this is some kind of golf score we're talking about. The lower the better. But where the cholesterol is concerned, that's definitely not the case. Even the most mainstream of the medical centers, the Mayo Clinic, warns about very low LDL. Though how low is too low, they've said hasn't been defined yet. Maybe it falls below 40, but it could be higher. Who knows? But don't take any chances when it comes to the question, how low can you go, unless you're doing a limbo, because unless you're careful, you could become part of the latest gamble with your health, the PCSK9 experiment. Hopefully, insurance companies will keep refusing to pay for these drugs, but even if they don't, you always have your own personal right of refusal. And by the way, There is no such thing as bad cholesterol. LDL cholesterol is just as important in the body as HDL. The problem arises when the LDL cholesterol oxidizes and then sticks to the blood vessel wall, which is why just lowering the cholesterol without fixing the reason it oxidizes does not really fix the problem, creates a host of new problems. It is scientifically proven that arginine-derived nitric oxide prevents the LDL cholesterol from oxidizing. Thus, your LDL number could be 600. As long as it isn't sticking to the blood vessel wall, you will not have to worry about coronary heart disease. So stick with taking Cardio for Life because it contains that arginine-derived nitric oxide, and don't give those cholesterol numbers a second thought. Topic number 3. After steadily improving over the past few decades, the numbers of Americans dying to a stroke, it is now going in the other direction. And it's not just seniors who are in danger. The so-called millennials, who run in the age from 18 to 24, could probably be renamed millennials, as that age group is seeing a huge increase in strokes. That's right, kids born in the 1990s are not only having strokes, but they're dying from them. The CDC is calling its new report on stroke deaths a wake-up call for all of us to lower our chances of having a stroke, no matter what your age. So what in the world could be going on here? After all, those magic statin pills are supposed to armor plate us against strokes and heart disease. And we both know that people in the U.S. are being prescribed those drugs like never before. But there's another big group of meds that might just be the smoking gun behind these shocking new findings. A classic case of drug treatments causing the very conditions they're touted to prevent. Here's what you need to know to dodge this deadly bullet. When the CDC talks about stroke prevention, among the top risk factors the agency lists are diabetes and high blood pressure. And while that's true, what those officials don't bother to mention is that many of the drugs used to treat these conditions can all on their own tip the scale toward having a deadly stroke. As one research put it, relying solely on Big Pharma's solutions comes at a dear price, and that's people's lives. For instance, the type 2 diabetes med Avandia, which I see on television, all should have been headed directly to the banned bin after being found to be significantly up the risk of having a stroke. Instead, nearly 4 years ago, the FDA actually removed all its warnings and safety restrictions, and while diabetics might think they're actually lowering their risk by managing their condition, that prescription they're filling may be very well the ticket to a stroke. Plus, if your blood pressure is truly high, you may have been told that you need to take multiple blood pressure drugs. But a study that came out of the University of Alabama at Birmingham a couple of years ago found that each time you add another blood pressure med to your routine, your risk of having a stroke goes up a whopping 33%. So do the math here. If you're taking 3 blood pressure meds, say a diuretic, beta blocker, an ACE inhibitor, or calcium channel blocker, let's see, what is 33 times 3? You get the message, don't you? At least I hope you do. Then there are the commonly used over-the-counter and prescription painkillers called NSAIDs, non-steroid anti-inflammatory drugs, which include ibuprofen such as Advil and Motrin, and naproxen, Aleve, and other brands. According to the research done by the National Institute of Health, no less routinely taking these drugs will give you a free membership to the Stroke Club. And it looks like those millennials are more and more likely to pop something at the slightest wince of pain than their grandparents would be. One researcher calls them the painkiller generation. A survey of young adults ranging in the age from 18 to 24 found that these kids don't want to have any discomfort, with a third admitting to taking over-the-counter pain med every single day if they have even the smallest twinge of pain. Then there's Celebrex, people, which is in a class by itself. This NSAID, COX-2 inhibitor, is the only one left on the market after its kissing cousins, Vioxx and Bextra, were taken off the circulation after being found to be the cause of tens of thousands of people in the U.S. suffering a heart attack and stroke. And even if you're the most thorough and drug label reader there is, such warnings aren't always included in the over-the-counter meds or even those book-length inserts that come with prescription drugs that you need a magnifying glass to read. On top of the stroke risk these drugs come along with, which some studies have found is one of the end results of drug-related fluid retention, many meds can also significantly raise your blood pressure, a stroke risk all on its own. These include meds you would take for a cold, which can narrow your blood vessels, as well as antidepressants and those NSAID painkillers. The bottom line here is that you need to avoid these kinds of frequently taken drugs whenever possible, and that might be a lot easier to do than you think. For example, some proven drug-free ways to lower your blood pressure includes brisk walking, relaxation techniques, which have positive domino effect of decreasing stress hormones that in turn lower a kidney enzyme that raises blood pressure, and certain key supplements including arginine, omega-3, and CoQ. Hey, all those are found in Cardio for Life. A number of alternative ways to alleviate chronic pain include acupuncture, yoga, tai chi, and topical creams that contain arnica and other top-selling ingredients, which you will find in my Thermomax, Boswellia, white willow bark, which is actually aspirin in the natural form. So all those things are in Thermomax, and it works very well. And while we're talking about strokes, it's also important to be able to recognize the symptoms of one. The sooner a stroke victim gets to medical attention, the more likely it is that they'll survive and recover. The American Heart Association has boiled it down to this acronym, FAST, which stands for face drooping, arm weakness, and speech and difficulty. Time to call 911. Knowing these signs is especially important to younger people, as they probably think a stroke could never ever happen to them. But as we know, that's no longer the case. I recently lost my brother-in-law, who at age 67 years old, ate healthy, wasn't on any meds, retired from being a dentist, had a stroke, and then was misdiagnosed in the hospital with a seizure, where he then had a massive stroke an hour later, from which he never recovered. So sometimes even doctors in a hospital don't recognize the signs of a stroke. Okay, people, moving on. Topic number 4. This one really shocked me. It's part of your daily routine for millions. Sip, swish, and spit. And I'm not talking about drinking tequila, but I'm talking about your mouthwash. But that innocent habit, one that seems to be a good way to keep your gums and teeth healthy, might instead be setting you up for high blood pressure and heart disease. Using bacterial zapping mouthwash every day turns out to be the very high risk way to freshen your breath. Those commercials for mouthwash sure make it seem like we'd all be walking around with killer bad breath if we didn't use them every day. But it turns out these antiseptic dental products are what can be the killers. You see, not all mouth bacteria is bad or causes tooth decay and gum disease. And just like your gut bacteria, there are plenty of very important kinds that live in your mouth and shouldn't be swished away every day. Some recent research has discovered that oral bacteria are what help provide your body with the essential molecule known as nitric oxide. Wipe out those bacteria and you'll find you deplete your supply of nitric oxide. Without enough nitric oxide, your blood pressure can soar and you're smacking the crosshairs for heart disease. You see, nitric oxide is your guardian when it comes to keeping your heart healthy, and it causes blood vessels to expand, increase blood flow, and even prevent blood clots from forming. I know I'm preaching to the choir here. And if guys had enough natural nitric oxide in their bodies, all those male performance pills would be in the trash. One expert on the molecule, Dr. Nathan Bryan, assistant professor at Baylor College of Medicine, calls the loss of nitric oxide the first event on the onset of progression of heart disease. To further back these findings, a study out of the Queen Mary University in London discovered 2 years ago that the antiseptic ingredient chlorhexidine was enough to bump up the blood pressure of a healthy person by 3.5 points. Right along with that, the research also discovered that nitrite production in the mouth had dropped off by over 90%. But Dr. Bryan doesn't limit the danger to that one antiseptic ingredient. He warns that any mouthwash that kills mouth bacteria can be just as risky. Since our production of nitric oxide starts dipping naturally after age 40, it makes sense to do whatever we can to keep these vital molecules working on our behalf. So avoid the mouthwash, and of course that is where Cardio for Life comes in and for boosting your nitric oxide level. And I forgot to unplug the phone. Topic number 5. Can your doctor actually fire you as a patient? Actually, he can. In fact, a new survey discovered that 9 out of 10 primary care practices have done just that. The reasons given include things like patient who is disruptive and wants to violate office policies regarding addictive meds, miss too many appointments, and don't pay their bill in a timely fashion. Sounds logical, right? Then there's this, repeated disregard of a doctor's medical recommendations. That's something we've been hearing a lot about lately, mostly with pediatricians who fire parents and kids from their practice for not following the mainstream vaccination schedules. And conceivably, your doctor could do the same if you refuse to take whatever med or even test that he's recommending. There are ethical guidelines a doctor needs to observe, however, before terminating a relationship with a patient. He can't simply just cut someone off who's in the midst of ongoing care, such as an expectant mother who is a few weeks from delivery or a patient who is in the midst of a round of chemo or radiation. He's also obliged to provide the patient with access to all medical records, and whenever possible, a suggestion for a new physician. He also has to give sufficient notice, usually by certified mail, along with the reasons for this decision to offer no further treatment. Of course, if your doctor keeps pushing risky drugs, tests, and procedures on you that you don't want or even need, maybe it's time for you to fire him and find a physician who's both more in tune with you and your health needs and respectful of your wishes. I always tell people that are upset with the drugs their doctors keep pushing on them and watching their quality of life slowly deteriorate because of those drugs to find another doctor who will work with you that believes in complementary alternative medicine. And then just don't quit going to your primary doctor. Let him know that he is fired because of his lack of knowledge to healing other than using poisonous drugs. I'm going to give you 3 websites that you can find a doctor in your area just by typing in your zip code. Here you go. www.holisticmedicine.org, www.naturopathic.org, and www.acam.org. That stands for I forgot what it stands for. Academy of Complementary Alternative Medicine. All right, moving on. Let's go to some good testimonies. This guy gave me pros and cons. So here's the pros. Cardio for Life comes in a variety of flavors. I like grape the most. I do feel an energy boost, most likely from the vitamin B's in the product. There are no side effects that I can report. It is relatively inexpensive. Also seems to be personal relationship with the product and company, whereas profit isn't the most important or sole motivating factor, which is very important concerning the health and well-being of people. It's nice to have access to people behind the product in case you have questions. I'm always there for you. Cons, it is not free. Well, just kidding. And although they do have a newer flavor, pina colada, I would think that a raspberry or mixed berry flavor would be more appealing, perhaps in the future. Well, we do have mixed berry in the chewables, so you can try that along with chocolate in the chewables. Afterthought, I just hope they don't get too big. It's not because I do not want to see healthy people, because I most certainly do. I just don't want Health Guardian to be overwhelmed with success that affects the product and personal relationship that they have built. Well, thank you for that, Paul. And no, we won't grow too fast that we ignore our clientele. Testimony number 2. Dr. Harry, I've been using Cardio for Life daily for several years. At first, I took it to support good heart health, but I have found that the supplements within the mix also offer excellent support for my immune system. I don't get nearly as many colds or other bugs. It's great formula and offers terrific value. Thank you for that, Sharon. Yes, it does. It boosts that immune system so that you shouldn't get it as sick. Testimony number 3. Excellent product and immediate response for customer service. Been a regular user for more than 10 years. I have plenty of energy and my health report from my doctor is excellent. Cardio for Life is the best health product. Join the team and reclaim your health and life enjoyment. Wow, that sounds like a infomercial. Oh, thank you for that, Mary. Testimony number 4. Love, love, love this product. Purchase chewables to take on vacation with us. Daughter is now taking the product as well. Thank you, Dr. Harry. Thanks, Beverly. And finally, testimony number 5. Cardio for Life literally saved my life and continues to do so. After heart surgery in 2013, I was put on half dozen medications which were making me so sick I felt worse than before my surgery. After finding the Health Guardian, being assured by Dr. Hay that it was okay to take Cardio for Life at the same time as the medical drugs, and once I started taking Cardio for Life for a little while, I could slowly phase out the prescribed drugs. Well, I did exactly that. And soon after that, I was on 0 prescription drugs and remain so to this date. I got my health back, my energy back, my life back. Thank you, Dr. Harry, and for the Cardio for Life. Long may you continue to save precious lives when everyone else, like your friendly doctor, hospitals and nurses, high street chemists, and above all the pharmaceutical drug companies, just seem to want your money and your life. Thank you for that, Roswitha from the UK. So that concludes our top 5 to stay alive. I hope you enjoyed today's version. I want to remind you that we will be doing a a webinar tomorrow night at 7 o'clock Central Standard Time. If you didn't get the invitation, email me and we will send one out to you. We have limited space, only for 100, and I think we have like 90 people signed up, so we have space for about 10 more. But generally speaking, when we do 100, not everybody shows up anyways. Things come up and then people can't make it. So we'll allow up to 120 people to sign up. So please stay tuned, because it is a presentation. What I want you to do with that presentation is get people around your computer or your television or your iPhone or whatever, because I will be doing a presentation on exactly Cardio for Life will do for a person. And it is a mind-blowing presentation. Make sure you watch it. Don't just listen to it, but watch it, because there's a lot of video going on. So please join us tomorrow night. And for all of us here at the Health Guardian, we wish to thank you for supporting us as we support you in optimizing your good health. Thanks again. God bless you all. This is Dr. Harry saying, till next time.